Hello, this is Grandma's Gone Gaming. I'm bringing you episode 5 of the November 2016 Minecraft Hardcore Challenge by Michael Deering. This is a challenge to build something pretty on the Mesa. Okay, I have gotten ready to go out here, I believe. While I'm here, I'll grab this gold out of here. That'll be part of my colors for building. And I do have iron armor on and tools and stuff. So I have a little bit of apples there. And I need some other food. So I'm going to go out and get some fish. And I promised that I would tell you a little bit more of the stories I've been telling you about how my parents brought us up with the work ethics that they had. I had been telling you, is it daytime? I was thinking it was daytime, but maybe I'm wrong here. Let me take a quick look. It is nighttime. No, it is daytime. There are trees in the way that I built right there. Okay. I want to go down that way too and get more stuff. And fishing, that's what I wanted to do. Okay, so I wanted to tie in the what Daddy did with the bowling alley in the school. I had mentioned that we had had flooding, and he took that bowling alley that had gotten flooded underneath the school. The entire basement of the school, the elementary school, did get flooded with that glacier stream runoff thing that happened that one year. And I don't always get my timing right on these things, but I believe that would have been like when I was, I think I was 6 or 7 at that point, because it had been after I know we had been in the living room of the house that he had built first out there, which then resulted in that one-room house that I had told you about already later on. That had been the living room, actually, of that house. And, boy, they're biting in a hurry. And one of the many places that we lived. But there wasn't too much you could do in Old Valdez for entertainment, especially, you know, the guys were out fishing on the commercial fishing boats, and there was the highways department to work for, and people worked in the, you know, the commercial places around. Oops, too late on that one. And there was always the need for some sort of entertainment besides the music that I've already mentioned. And the bowling alley had been used, and was it, I think they had maybe 3 lanes. There were either 2 or 3 lanes. There weren't a lot. It was just a small area. That was weird. Oh, I see the bubbles I'm seeing out there from the squid. And then all of a sudden, nothing. So Daddy undertook going in to fix that bowling alley. He had worked in a bowling alley when he was in high school, and he knew about, you know, what should happen, and then he was a builder. So he took those warped, ruined hardwood lanes apart and did the best he could. The entire flooring in there, everything was all warped from the water, and he took it apart and very carefully reconstructed everything. I remember him doing all of, you know, planing the wood, you know, sanding it, planing it, refinishing it painstakingly, but it was still warped. And I remember that we would, you know, everybody, again, the families would go, and we would go into the bowling alley and bowl the best you could. You know, the balls had not gotten harmed. And, of course, at that time, they were made out of slightly different material than they are now, I believe. And they were very, very heavy balls. And so we kids got to, you know, dink around on a little bit when he wasn't working and when they weren't doing bowling things. But that was just the kind he did. And he did that for free. He didn't get hired to do that. You know, he just did those things. I remember all of the time growing up that when anybody ever had anything wrong, he was called in to be the hand. He was basically the really good handyman in the area. Other people there was, you know, a hardware store owner that had kids, and I grew up with those kids. There was all sorts of stuff. It was a small town, but we had stuff. We had some of our own conveniences there, and as I mentioned, most of the things would come in on the big steamships that came in with our supplies. So I remember him fixing that up, and he also made sure that we were able to again use the little theater that was on the other end of that building. Now for succeeding years, when we would need more room in the schoolrooms, I remember there was always seemed like standing water during the summers after that one flood down in that basement. Never did get dried out, but we needed the room, and so we would walk over water on planks that had been laid down to get from one area of the building to another area. And we had 2 rooms that we were able to use down there besides the bowling alley area, which didn't actually end up staying open that long. It just was too hard to maintain because the winters would just make it worse. Everything would freeze and all that kind of stuff. So we did have it for, I think, a couple of summers, and that was it. Okay, what am I doing wrong here? I need to maybe hit a little different area there. I'm looking wrong at that bank. But at any rate, we had our little theater there, and for a while that had been the theater that had been used by Old Valdez as a community theater. But it was big enough for maybe 50 people. Didn't have a lot. It was actually, went from the top to the bottom, had a regular theater seats. Now then, later on at the Eagles Hall, they bought banks and banks of just plain wooden theater type seats, and they had them down on the level in the big old hall that they used for the Eagles events. And then they ran the projector from upstairs. One of my friends, Barry, in school, his dad was the projector person, and Barry and his older brothers ran the projectors for our school because they had been taught by their dad, who was also one of our main airlines pilots. Then they ran the airport. Everybody had to do everything at that time. You learned to do anything that you could to help maintain the community. And that's kind of where I'm going with this, is that one of the things that I really like about Minecraft is the community that we have, and we learn from each other, and the game is so open-ended that you can there's mods and there's all that, but even with the vanilla game, you can do so many things. The kids learn things from the redstone that can lead later on to engineering, building things. One of my grandsons, Harry, he is going to be 9 in January, and that kid, he loves... How many fish do I have? Okay, that's good for a while. He loves to copy racetracks and stuff that he's learned from the other games that they've played. The Mario Brothers tracks especially, he loves to do that. And he can build those things and come up with things with the redstone and stuff that rival some of the stuff that some of the older programmers and stuff that I've seen. He is so good at it, and I think that in later years he will probably do stuff like that. He's a very good designer, and he has a wonderful mind for thinking up things that can be done in all sorts of different games. He loves to play Jazz Jackrabbit, one of the older games that I've had around that still works on Windows 7. Works on Windows 8, I think, too, but I don't know about 10. But it has a map generator in it, as do quite a few of the older games, and he loves that. He just loves to go in and make his own Jazz Jackrabbit tracks and ways to play the game. It's great. So we always here at our house, in our family, encourage the kids to learn everything they can. For anything they can, and there's just really, there are no limitations on things. People put limitations on things, and kids need to know, they need to learn that they can do things that maybe they didn't think they could. Give it a try. Find alternate materials. Find different ways. If something doesn't work, try another way. It's so important that kids learn that at an early age, and we did. We were taught those things way back when. Thought I saw a creeper coming at me over there. So another note that I have here is that not only did my mom and dad build, mom had her music and learned to keep house and all that, and daddy built physical things that could be used by the family, by the townspeople, but they also were very, very artistic, both of them, and they built things that were, especially when you live in a world that, I'm thinking of Alaska as a world that is maybe a little different than other places, and you have so much winter. Nope, don't need to use that yet. Good. All right, we're going to go down. I think not. Well, maybe I could. I'll bet that one joins right here. Yeah, we'll go this way. Oh, yeah, I have plenty of torches. Okay, so they would decorate things. One year, my dad loved Christmas. I don't know too many men that don't like, decorating for Christmas especially, but he loved it. And we lived out in the country, so we really didn't, like compete with some of the houses in town and, do Christmas decorations in that way, but he loved doing it. And one year they had a competition. They had a town-wide competition. So he decided, he and mom could draw very well. She was, what am I using that for? Goodness. She drew large pictures of the three wise men. And I don't think at that point she had a nativity scene that she made with it. I believe that later on that was added to, but she made the three wise men because it was something that she felt she could draw. And they made those, each wise man on their camel. They each had a camel, and they were a whole piece of plywood, tall and wide and whatever. They took up a whole piece of plywood, and I think some actually had to have extra parts joined onto them. But Daddy had the wood, and I'll tell you about how he got a lot of his wood. But they designed those. She drew them and graphed them up for the bigger size from regular pieces of paper, and he then put them onto the wood and used his whatever hand saws he had, whatever he needed to draw them out. And then we didn't have, I've mentioned, I think before, that we did not have electricity all the time. We did in later years have generators, but we did not have city lights, nothing like that, because we weren't close enough to the town. Nowadays, out where we lived, lots of other people live out that way now, from the new town, and they're even farther from town, because I think they are like 8 miles from the new town out that way now. And there are regular city utilities and plumbing and all that kind of stuff out there, but at that time there wasn't. And we probably could have had somebody do it if we'd had the money to put into it and have it done for us, but we didn't. And so Daddy purchased a couple, first of all, a small diesel generator, and like I had said before, he could do mechanic work as well as building work. And so he fixed them up. Later on, we had a great big huge gas generator, and I think it must have come from some sort of a plant of some kind where they had, it may have come from the old electric plant, actually, in fact. I'm trying to remember back, but it isn't important. It was huge, and he maintained it. But gas was, of course, more expensive than diesel, and even though it would put out more electricity and we could get more done while they were running, which Mom said she hated the weekends when we ran the generators because she had to get all of her work done then. She had to clean the house and do the laundry and do the dishes and pump the water, and because we at that time my dad had put in running water, but that was later on. But anyway, that one winter, I always digress because there's just so many things in my memory. But that year that he made they made the three wise men, and they put them up by the road. And he put like battery flashlights for spotlights on the times that the inspectors were supposed to come out and check the displays to see what they thought about them and everything. And he won. he actually won. And I think it was because they were so creative, not just in making the beautifully cut. Oh, look at this. Look at all the stuff down here. The beautifully cut and painted items, but you know, they were creative about how to light them up, because we didn't have regular Christmas lights that could be run. And at that time, you know, nowadays you could get solar lights and all that kind of stuff. They didn't have that kind of stuff. You just had to make do with what you had. So they figured it out and they did it. There's a creeper right down at the end of that row, which I really don't want to. Oh no, it's a yeah, skeleton. I never can remember how to say that word when I want it. Okay, we're not going over there right now. And so that was the kind of thing they did. And then some of the years, in later years, Daddy had a big jigsaw, a real, actually, one of the very first very large type jigsaws. And they were made for doing like cornice work and stuff like that, for building, not so much for decorative work, but they made actual jigsaws for us. Mom, again, she drew out the pictures, or she found magazine pictures and stuff like that, and glued it onto masonite. And I don't know if you know what masonite is, but you could Google it. And it has a shiny side and it has a rough side, and it's what Daddy used in our floors as a finish wood. And so it was very polishable. It made great dance floors. That's what a lot of the dance floors were made out of. And it made great, nicely, it was a dark, kind of a dark brown color. And when polished up, it just made a very nice flooring. And inexpensively at that. So he took some of that masonite, leftover, scraps that he had, and they made puzzles and they made albums for us with these beautiful album covers made out of hardwoods and some plywood, and then pieces that they had cut out. Because I loved horses at the time, mine had a pretty blue horse on it that Mom had painted. She drew it herself and painted it. You are going away. Don't want you up here. And just those kind of things. And they were always decorating stuff. And my mom was always saying, oh, I can't do anything. I can't draw. I'm not talented. She was utterly talented in those kind of things. Not just in music, but in all of the arts. And she taught us. She taught us what she knew. She did not know how to sew when she married. And but she learned and she taught me. And in later years, I've made all my family's clothing at one time. Just didn't buy much of anything. We just I sewed everything. I also learned to knit and crochet. She had learned how to crochet, but she never learned how to knit. But I had friends that learned how to knit but not crochet. So as kids, we would gather together at one house or the other and have, whoa, I did not expect that, have our sewing club. And we did sew, and we did knit and crochet. We also learned that as part of our home ec classes. I don't know that a lot of schools even have home ec classes anymore. I haven't heard a lot of stuff. My kids have been out of school for quite some time now. But even when they were growing up and got into high school, home ec was not one of the things that was really happening everywhere then. So I'm really sorry that kind of thing has stopped, or almost stopped, seems like, in schools these days. Kids need to learn those things. The boys always took shop. Didn't matter whether they wanted to or not. They took it. Now, they could additionally take auto shop and stuff like that. But the year of the quake in 1964, that's a huge story. I don't even want to go into that. That will be for another time, perhaps, when we do some sort of a disaster fix-up or something. The boys were required to take a semester of home ec, and we girls were required to take a semester of woodshop. Now, we had our teacher not only taught us woodworking, but he taught us leatherworking, things that could be used for practical living still in the community where we lived, in what I've mentioned more than once was still a pretty primitive and pioneer type town. So, yeah, and I know I have reached day 5. Those are the kind of things that we learned. We continually learned them. Life went on, life changed. my mom and dad continued to dream about doing different things, and I picked up on those things, and that's what I want to tell you about during the next um, episode, which I'm going to go into immediately here. And I will be getting up now up at the top. I wanted to get some of this redstone down here, and I wanted more of the gold, but I'm going to go up and start getting the clay colors. Need to get my build made. My build is not going to take me too long. It's quite simplistic. But it will, I think, echo what I've been trying to say here, is that builders and dreamers have a different kind of life, perhaps, than others that just kind of rely on everything else that's been built or dreamed of by other people. Not to say that life is any better for either one, but it's different. It is really different from my experience. So, all right, so I'm going to say goodbye for now, and I'll be back in just a little bit with episode 6. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.